Hey guys and gals, Joe here, the man who wonders why we use a belt when we could just use Jules Winfield's wallet. I mean, it says the same thing, right? And I'm here to talk about UFC 291, the return of the BMF belt. That's why I made the said joke. And according to me and Carl, this is the 12th most prestigious title in the company. You guys can do the math for yourself and maybe take a guess at what's the least prestigious. So anyways, it was a card with a lot of finishes, but was it all great? You know, finishes are nice, but was it all great? Well, enough talk. Let's get to the fights. So in the main event of the evening, we had Justin Gaethje, Dustin Poirier, and a lightweight title match, or kind of, for the BMF belt. It's a rematch because their first fight was, I think, about 5 years ago. Instant classic, one of the best fights you'll ever see. I think when you talk about Justin Gaethje's best fights or Dustin Poirier's best fights, this is going to be in your top three for both of them. So just kind of pick and choose, you know. Like, we all have different ones. I personally, even though it involves a fighter I also love, I actually really enjoy the first 2 rounds of Gaethje Ferguson so much that I have it in my top 2, if not number 1 for Gaethje fights. Some people say Eddie Alvarez fight. For Dustin Poirier, you got Max Holloway 2, which I think is a 10 out of 10 instant classic. Or if you're like me, maybe it's Conor Dustin 2. But how does this fight match up? Is this just as good? It isn't. But the original is hard to top, so that's kind of fair, I suppose. So Gaethje was doing very well in the first round. He was using a lead leg low kick to kick the outside leg of Poirier's southpaw stance. Great stuff, kicking the right side. It was giving Poirier some troubles, and at the same time, Gaethje's using this kick to try and set up and look for openings in the incredible Philly shell defense of Dustin Poirier. Everyone tries to figure out a way to answer this with their boxing, and it kind of feels like, outside of maybe sneaking in a couple shots here and there, it's really hard to have consistent success. Conor is a very good striker, even though I rag him all the time and dislike the man. He's a very good striker. At times, I feel like, that's a whole other topic, right? I feel like he's kind of reverted a little bit since his big prime coming up stage. But I think Conor had a little bit of trouble in their second and third fight, trying to land consistently against him. He landed some shots, but not a ton. Charles Oliveira, very good boxer and striker, mostly known for his grappling, but he can strike, as we've seen, and he had trouble landing consistently. Max Holloway, probably the most highly credited boxer in MMA at the highest levels, had a hard time and even complained to his corner, going, "This guy blocks weird, I don't know what to do." So Justin is hoping the kicks can help find him an avenue in. But then Poirier starts having success with his body kick. Justin is trying to block it by kind of ducking down into it, risking running into a knee, risking a couple of more issues there. But the body kicks were able to kind of parlay and lead into success with Poirier's hands from the southpaw position. He was doing a great job of that. Good little hand fighting action there as well. I really liked it, and I thought Poirier stole the first round. Honestly, if I'm to judge rounds per fights, this is a 10 out of 10 round for me. It was eventful, great technical masterpiece, in my opinion. I thought there were some really good technical moments between the two of adjustments and everything. I really like it. MMA is at its best for me when one fighter has a question in front of him, he presents an answer, and then asks another question, and the opponent asks another one, and vice versa. I think that is the best MMA can be, is when it's like that. But then the second round, about a minute in, Gaethje throws out a right hand, and there's a high kick behind it, and it puts Poirier out cold. Just boom. He comes in for the Dan Hendo kind of follow-up shot, which, some people call it super necessary. Depending on how you feel about those shots, I'm kind of torn, admittingly. But even funnier was Herb Dean sliding in to stop the fight, and he looked like he was doing a work elbow drop, Dolph Ziggler style. That made me crack up laughing. And what's even crazier is the coincidence of this. So This is the exact same shot and technique from different stances. Open guard matchup, high kick into the open guard. That leads to a finish, as we had last year in Utah when Leon Edwards put out Kamaru Usman. Even funnier to me is Kamaru Usman was seen with Gaethje, because they're training partners with Trevor Whitman, and was like talking to him, said a couple things to him before the fight and then after the fight. I legitimately wonder if he went up to him and said, "Hey man, use that move that put me out last year." It could happen, right? But what's next for both fighters? For Poirier, I'm uncertain, as I feel like he doesn't have that dog in him outside of the cage. In the cage, he's the monster. He's a boogeyman of the division. If you're a fighter, you probably don't want to see Dustin Diamond Poirier across the cage from you, I'd imagine. Him and Gaethje are probably kind of like boogeymen in a sense. But outside of that, he seems like, outside of the cage and outside of fights itself, he's like, I'm just here for big, fun fights. Okay. So what about him and Fiziev? Like, how about that, him and Fiziev? Maybe not the biggest name, but it sounds awesome. For Gaethje, it seems like it's going to be a title shot against the winner of Charles Islam 2, which could be a long wait. Islam Makhachev has a really hard problem of fighting like 2 times a year if we're really lucky. So who knows? Maybe he'll go beat up on someone in the waiting period. I just thought of this crazy idea. What if let's say Volkanovski beats Topuria? We have Volkanovski Gaethje. Sounds great to me. So for our co-main event of the evening, we had Alex Pereira making his light heavyweight debut against Jan Blachowicz. So let me tell you, there was 2 fights on this main card that made me really sad and were hard to watch for me. This is one of them. So Alex Pereira, round 1, he gets out grappled, kind of laid on, avoids getting rear naked choked a lot, because Blachowicz had his back with the body triangle for most of it. Round 2, he avoids the ground and lands some big shots. I thought he even hurt him in there, was going to go for the finish at one point. And in the third round, a mix of both rounds essentially, but late in the round, Jan gets this huge takedown and maintains great control. And it seems like it secures him the round. It seems like a really clear decision that Jan won rounds 1 and 3. So there's no way they can ruin this decision, right? Wrong. It's MMA judges, man. Like, they do what they do. So Alex Pereira gets a split decision win. Jan is now winless in 2 straight fights. I thought draw against Makhachev December of last year, which I do agree with. And then this one, even funnier. The crowd was very pro Pereira. They want to see a stand-up striking fight. Pereira's got that weird, crazy power, probably the biggest pound-for-pound hitter ever. And when the decision was read, the crowd didn't really know, like, they didn't really cheer. They were just kind of shocked and weirded out, too. Very funny for me. Not a great fight and a bad call, I think, judging-wise. But let me know what you think down in the comments, because I am known for having wild opinions on judges. I feel like I'm usually the outlier in, like, close fights. I feel like I'm usually that guy that's, like, robbery, yelling that in the background. And lastly, for the fights that I'm going to cover in great detail, I don't want to go through the mental torture and pain that is covering another Tony Ferguson loss. So let's talk about Derek Lewis, Marcos Rogerio de Lima, and originally this was supposed to be Michel Pereira versus Wonderboy, and I'll talk a little bit about that later. But on the previous show, we highlighted how they're fighting in Utah, it's an elevation, and we were really happy there was no heavyweights on the main card, and they put heavyweights on the main card. So your only hope, I believe, in this situation is to just pray for a quick finish, or probably get stuck with like one of the worst fights of all time. But Derek Lewis, though, he came down from the heavens, parted the clouds, took off his shorts, and got us a basically about 30-second finish in the first round. Out the gate, he comes in throwing that switch flying knee that he's like thrown for like 5+ years. That always whiffs, or hits him in the chest. And he lands it flush on a ducking de Lima. From here, Swarms gets a TKO finish. Then he talked about how, he's feeling good, feeling great, healthy. He had like abs of the weigh-ins and stuff. And that, he just finished out. He's like, coming back after a win, breaking that losing streak he was on. And he says he's going to be a free agent soon. So he openly said, I guess we're going to see what happens. Got me thinking. Hear me out, guys. Hear me out. Ngannou Lewis 2. A rematch to the worst fight ever. Maybe. I think it's number 2. It's at least up there. And I know you're groaning. But you got to hear me out here. How could a rematch be any worse? If it was 5 rounds, actually. But that's the only way, right? Plus, you're giving Black Beast Derek Lewis a 7-figure fight. Something he deserves. He deserves a 7-figure, after his crazy, illustrious career of being, one of the more, never, a top 2-3 guy, but, always in that top 5 and always really fun, top 10, kind of guy. And it's also a middle finger to the UFC and their pay structure. So that sounds like a win-win to me. Then for the rest of the card, I'm going to be really quick on this first fight. Bobby Green tapped out Tony Ferguson with an arm triangle choke late in the fight. Please retire Tony. That's all I'm going to say. And if you didn't catch that, Bobby Green tapped out Tony Ferguson with the arm triangle choke late in the fight. Tony Ferguson, please retire for me. This is hurting me. I love you, man. Kevin Holland got a first-round Darce choke over Michael Chiesa and then teased a middleweight return. Quick note, really sad statistic they showed after the pay-per-view on the, little analysis show. Michael Chiesa has been tapped out 3 times with a Darce choke in the UFC and has the record for it. Yeah, that's horrible. Gabriel Bonfim got a quick guillotine choke over Trevin Giles. Very impressed by him. I'm looking forward to seeing what he does in the future. Roman Kopylov got a huge head kick win over Claudio Ribeiro. And Jake Matthews, he said fighters are paid enough and everybody should stop complaining about it. Then got a submission win over Darius Flowers. Euros Medic, I believe his name, Medic, got a spinning elbow into a swarm of punches to get a win over Matthew Semmelsberger. And finally, Miranda Maverick beat Priscilla. I'm still confused at how you're in the UFC, Cachoeira. So, what's it for the news? I mentioned a certain other thing earlier. So, Wonder Boy pulled out of his fight with Michel Pereira. Pereira weighed in 3 pounds, heavy, overweight. Wonder Boy cited that he felt like it was an unfair advantage and that taking a pay cut doesn't resolve the matter, as he's had issues fighting fighters who have come in overweight, and it gives him an edge in the fight, in strength and stuff like that. And it just, there isn't a big enough punishment for missing weight. And he also cited that, this fight has stakes. If he wins this fight, he could get get bigger paychecks down the line. And if they win the fight, it's the same thing for them. So taking a percentage and then still fighting isn't always the best call. And he also cited his health, that he's old, he's been around for a while, and he just thinks it's better just to keep looking down the road and look for something better. Okay, but then here's this crazy wrinkle that potentially has happened. Apparently, this is confirmed by Mike Bone from MMA Junkie USA Today. Apparently, Wonder Boy wasn't paid his show money. It's a common thing when a fighter pulls out because his opponent couldn't make the weight. You get show money at least. UFC didn't do it. Appalling, ridiculous. He made weight. He was ready to go. He's been a veteran, a great veteran for multiple years, for a very long time, and ranked, always highly ranked in the UFC. Company man. This is how we treat him. We don't show money. What a disgusting, terrible thing. And I did not see the UFC commentate on that, or comment on that, or Dana comment on that. I really hope that if they really didn't pay him his show money, I hope that Dana did his little, I took care of him. What's that mean? I took care of him. I paid his Disney Plus, or I don't know, something. Give the man something, because he made this trip out to Utah, did everything he was supposed to, had to go through the training camp, now has to worry about elevation, already a hell, and made weight, received zero compensation for it. Because his opponent wasn't professional enough to make weight, and I say that as a Michel Pereira fan. Terrible. Shame on the UFC if that's true. I don't understand why this isn't a bigger story. I don't understand why more publications aren't talking about this. I want to get to the bottom of this, because I don't know if it's true. One guy has a source, a reporter has a source, says it's true. I still don't feel comfortable in saying that this is 100% true, because I wasn't there. I didn't talk to Wonder Boy personally. I didn't talk to the UFC personally, but I would like some clarity on the situation, because if that is true, this is one of the most disgusting things I've seen the UFC do, and Dana White was promoting slap fighting not that long ago, which is probably still number one. That's it for me after that downer of a topic, but I will be back next week, hopefully in a better mood, because we have Corey Sandhagen taking on Rob Font. Very excited for that fight. I'm Joe with the INC. Thank you for watching.